What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of 2 on 2 Out of Phillies podcast. Not as happy of a note this time around. Our last episode, we made a pretty early mention of how it was one of our more positive episodes, and just like that, in classic Phillies fashion, excuse me, we followed up with, a not so positive one. Bob, before we dive into these past three series, how you feeling today?
Not great. Not great.
All right, that's really setting the tone for what we're about to talk about here. The Phillies had their first West Coast trip of the season. They went out to first Los Angeles, followed by San Francisco. They would drop 4 out of those 6 games to 2 of the best teams in the league. They deserve to at least have that caveat put on there. But as we look into how these games played out, they had chances to not do so poorly. In that Dodgers series, they dropped 2 of 3. Game 1 finished with a score of 3-1. We saw Spencer Howard get the start. Not too bad. He go 4 innings, giving up 3 runs. Connor Brogdon and Bailey Falter come in and close things down. They only give up 3 runs in the game, but Dodgers pitching showed up as advertised. They held things down, and Phillies just couldn't. They scored 1 run in the first on an RBI single by Bryce Harper, and that would be it. I mean, there was no more scoring from the Phillies, and but it was nice to see that the pitching on the Phillies side at least held things together and gave the offense a chance. It just wasn't meant to be. Game 2, somewhat of a similar story. Phillies dropped this one 5-3. Zach Eflin gets the start in this one. He goes 5 innings, giving up 3 earned runs. The Phillies would also lose Gene Segura. He injured his groin on running to first base, and then Bryce Harper once again with some back trouble. Now, granted, we have now looking back in hindsight, he does come back pretty soon after. But Bob, are you concerned at all with Bryce Harper's back? He missed significant time last year. It was a problem all off season. He missed some time earlier this season. Now he tweaks it in this at bat. Are you worried that that still 10 plus years left on this contract? Is it something that worries you that the back could be a persistent problem for Bryce?
Oh, absolutely. That terrifies me. I would say I'm not a doctor, so I don't know if it's a conditioning thing in the off season or if it's just it could be solved with surgery. If surgery would be worse for it, it's just. But yeah, I am concerned, especially with the amount of time he's missed already this season. And like I said, we've heard over the winter and during the spring of it being a nagging issue. So it's never the core injuries and back injuries to me worry me probably the most because those things can tend to linger and can really affect everything else in your body.
I can attest that to myself. I am not an athlete. Maybe a little bit of breaking news here, but I myself am not an all-star baseball player. But I've been having back issues for the last 2 years, and it can really, one bad day kind of sets you on a bad streak for a week because it starts to creep into other parts of your body, and if it becomes chronic and something that just keeps popping up. You can't. He's got a violence. Well, violent might not be the best word, but the swing he has, that big wide open, swing he puts into the ball. It of course going to be impacted by back issues like that. So if this is something that's going to be on repeat and something we're going to see season after season, it's not something you want out of the guy you gave all this money to. Now. How was anybody supposed to see this coming? It's not something you can predict. But yeah, I think it's something we're going to be talking about for probably the rest of his contract. I'm sure before the end of the season we may see it pop up again. And similar story with Gene Segura. I mean, obviously different contracts and whatnot, but Segura, this is his second or third time already this season. I believe he missed time. He missed time last year, or maybe it was the year before. But he's had repeated issues too. So. And you've got Didi that's been out. JT has missed time this year, so injuries are playing a pretty decent role in hampering this team. Do I think it's the main reason they are where they are? No, but I do think injuries are something that I don't know. Maybe it's the things I read, but I don't feel like injuries are brought up enough in terms of how this team is performing. And we've seen Bryce come back already. Gene Segura seems like he could be back without any time on the injured list, and Didi's working his way back up. So hopefully we're on the horizon of a fully healthy lineup. Game 3 against the Dodgers, saw the Phillies squeak out one win in their series in LA. They get the 2-0 shutout victory. Zach Wheeler gets the start here. He goes 6 innings. Jose Alvarado comes in for 2 clean innings, and Hector Neris gets the save. So they complete the shutout together. It's the first time the Dodgers were shut out in 139 games. Interesting note: the Phillies brought out the red jerseys in this one. It's I think the story was the players themselves got together and they were bored of the road gray jerseys and decided they wanted to bring back these reds. I think the last time the reds were worn, other than spring training, they wore them, 2016, 2017? They were wearing them in some home day games. I remember Vince Velasquez, when he had that 16 strikeout complete game at home, they were wearing the reds. So I guess it's a new thing they're going to do on the road. They'd wear them later in the San Francisco series. I guess, well, it's as good a time as any, Bob. Give me a ranking of your current Phillies jerseys. There's 5 right now, right? You got the home whites, the home cream, the powder blues, and then on the road you've got the grays and the reds. So where do the reds rank up there for you in the Phillies jerseys?
The reds probably rank 3rd. Okay. For me. I love the powder blues, are probably my first, then the regular home whites, then the reds, then the road grays, and then maybe I'm an outlier here, I don't really care for the cream jerseys that much. It's weird. I don't like them when I see them in stores. I don't like them when I see it on TV. I like the cream jerseys better when I see it in person. Like I saw them the other week when at the game. I like them better in person, but they're not my favorite jersey. There is another jersey that they only worn a couple of times since they wore them in the 80s, and they wore them a couple of times over the last few years. It's the maroon red jerseys. Those are the ones that I wish would be used more. We don't have many jersey combinations. I would love to see the old school maroon red ones be used like on the road more. I just love those jerseys.
I think I almost completely agree with your ranking. I have a similar feeling on the cream alternates. I appreciate them for what they are. It's a little bit different, but they're not my favorite. I probably would have swapped the cream and the grays but your top 3, I agree with the powder. How can you go wrong with those powder blues? They just look beautiful. The combination with the maroon, and then the home whites with the red pinstripes are just too classic to not like. Those so with the maroons, do you go with the maroon pants too, or do you try to find a different pant combination with those?
I like the whole combination. The Uncle Larry meme for McCutchen, he's wearing that all maroon old school jersey. I love that jersey so much. I wish I've only seen it happen over we've seen it like 5 or 6 times over the last 5 years. I would love if they said, "Hey, this is going to be our alternate road uniform." Sign me up for that. I'll take that all the time.
I agree. It's hard to disagree with because they do look great, and the Uncle Larry thing with McCutchen is that's such a cool picture, and that whole how that whole thing played out was really neat. He's such a fun guy to have on the team. I guess speaking of fun, just to make a quick note in that game 3, Kershaw got the start for the Dodgers, and going into the game, Hoskins was 0 for 35, 36. He was on a huge skid, and he ends up hitting a solo home run off of Kershaw out to left, and part of the scoring there for the Phillies, and helps get them at least one win in that Dodgers series. So then it sends the team out to San Francisco, where they would take on Gabe Kapler and the Giants. Game 1 doesn't go so well for the Phils. They drop that one 5-3. Odubel Herrera and Andrew McCutchen both hit home runs. That was McCutchen's second home run on this road trip. Vince Velasquez got the start in this one. He goes 4 innings with 4 earned runs allowed. He threw 60 pitches between the first 2 innings in that one, and we just continue to see issues with Velasquez. He just kind of is who he is at this point. We had some bright spots from him, and even in his bright spot games, he would only go 5 innings. I mean, it's just, I think we know what he is at this point, and it kind of rolls into something I want to mention here, and it's the starting pitchers in general for the Phillies. You know, the game before, the first game in that Dodgers series, excuse me, you saw Spencer Howard only able to go 4 even after a strong start. Vince Velasquez in this one can only go 4. You think of some of the other guys that have been in the rotation this year, Matt Moore. I mean, you know, there was a game against the Cardinals. I don't think he got out of the second inning. There's a problem with the Phillies rotation, and I'm not sure where to go. You know, what do you do to patch up this rotation right now?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's probably what you have, unless they decide to go out and bring somebody in from outside the organization. But I don't really see that as a big need for them, because I don't know if Dave thinks his team is worth spending money on right now, or spending prospects on right now. The one guy that I'm worried about, a guy I thought who I thought would have a great year, is Eflin. He hasn't made it. He hasn't made it to the 7th inning, or out of the 7th inning, since his 3rd start.
Wow.
Yeah, so his 3rd start was the last time he went a complete 7 innings. Other than that, he's gone like 5 or 6 or 6 2/3. His ERA is in the 4s. I thought it would be the middle of the high 3s. I just thought this would be a more of a breakout year for Eflin, and it's just hasn't turned out that way. So that is concerning to me. The Spencer Howard thing continues to boggle me. I think he threw a shutout in the minors last year, a couple years ago, and he went complete game. He's throwing like 96 the whole game, and now he gets to the 3rd or 4th inning, he throws like 91, 92. So the velocity, you talked about, possibly him being a bullpen piece in the future. That's not what you want out of your top pitching prospect. Is a guy who you hope will be a bullpen piece. I'm very concerned with the staff. Yeah,
and one guy I don't want to forget about here is Aaron Nola. I mean, Aaron Nola, 2018 it was that he finished 3rd for the Cy Young voting, and he's had. It's not like he's had bad seasons since then, but he has not been able to replicate those same numbers, and this season alone. So going into this next game against the Giants, like I said, Phillies dropped that game 1-5-3. They went up against Johnny Cueto, who had a quality start for the Giants there. Game 2 here, Phillies end up losing this one 13-6. I'm sorry, winning this one 13-6. At this point, I just assume that's
you just assume we're going to lose everything.
So they win this one 13-6, but Aaron Nola wasn't a huge help in this one. He goes just 2 1/3 innings to start the game, and he ends up giving up 6 earned runs against the Giants. Now, I mean, the Giants are a good ball club, but that's not what you expect out of Aaron Nola. At least career trend wise. So, like I said, 2 1/3 innings, he gives up the 6 earned runs, 3 walks, only manages 1 strikeout, 2 home runs. So there's, aside from Zach Wheeler, and we'll get into his most recent start in a second here, but aside from Zach Wheeler, there's just this rotation. There's nothing that you can point to in these last few weeks that is encouraging. And like you said, is there anybody in the front office that sees this team as worthy of having money spent on it, of signing a free agent, of making a trade? There's just, I think there's just more wait and see, and just go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's very weird, and what's also the thing is that it's still, we're only in June. There's still, a few months away for the season to be done. We're only 5 games out, so you're in that spot of like, well, you're still kind of in it, and you still should try to fight for it. So we're in a weird position. I would much rather be like 20 games out and just be like, okay, well,
Yeah.
let's see what we have in the minors and bring everybody up. That's
Uh-huh.
the kind of mood I'd be in. Let me pose a question to you. A guy who's been very helpful out of the bullpen. He actually won that game out in San Francisco. What are your thoughts on possibly putting Ranger Suarez in the rotation?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought him up because, I mean, there's a case for him being the MVP of this team to this point if it weren't for Zach Wheeler, because he has come into so many of these games and just been incredible. We've seen, he's gotten turns in the rotation before, and it wasn't spectacular. It wasn't awful either. But at this point, what is there to lose? I mean, well, actually, there is something to lose because he is, at this point, to me, he's the most reliable arm in that bullpen. So you're taking already a depleted bullpen, which that's another topic we're going to get to in a little bit here, but you're taking an already depleted bullpen or an underperforming bullpen, whatever you want to call it, and you're going to take possibly the best guy out and try to put him in the rotation. And it's just, okay, so you maybe you improve the rotation a little bit, but do we even know how many innings Ranger can go? Because he seems, when he comes in relief, he usually at most goes 3 innings. So I'm not even sure if you'd be getting, these long quality starts from him. But again, then it just all goes back to what other options do you have? A team that's on the skid right now and looking for any kind of help. Maybe you do, throw him out there, and give him a start. But it doesn't look like they're going to do that because with the doubleheader against the Mets tomorrow, I believe Girardi has already announced that Matt Moore is going to start one of the 2 games. Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. It's just going to be more of the same. So, yeah, I guess to answer the question, I don't think I'd take him out right now, only because he is so reliable in the bullpen. But then what do you do with the rotation? I don't know. Maybe Matt Moore finds something in his return here, but I don't have high hopes for it. And I don't think anybody else really does either. And that's kind of at where we are with the Phillies at this point. I want to close out that game there that the Phillies did win. We saw doubles from Harper, from Torreyes, from Hoskins, Luke Williams, and JT Realmuto all collected doubles in that one. Rhys Hoskins hit 2 home runs in the game, and Ronald Torreyes hit his 2nd home run of the season as well. Rhys would collect 6 RBIs in this game. That was a career high for him. I think twice before he had 5. I guess it's a good time to talk a little bit about Rhys because we spoke about how going into the Dodgers series he was 0 for I think it was 35 or 39, and now since that home run against the Dodgers, he's hitting close to 300. He's got a couple walks in there. His power numbers are up a bit. He's got 4 home runs total. It seems to have been this season that there's always one guy that's hot. Rhys gets on it. Rhys gets going, and then Harper and JT struggle, and then Bryce was on fire to start the season, and then Rhys and JT kind of not bad, but not on their best game, and we've seen JT go on streaks, and even though he's remained pretty consistent. Are you okay with Rhys being the everyday guy here for the foreseeable future with how streaky he can be? I mean, I think at maybe a year or 2 ago we had hope that Rhys could flatten out a bit and get more consistent, but now, similar to how we talked about Velasquez earlier, who he is. I think we know who Rhys is. I think we know that Rhys is a very up and down streaky guy. So are you okay with him in the lineup, or would you rather see some sort of move happen to get a guy that's a little more consistent? I guess at the plate and in the field.
You know what? For me, it's more the fact that I think maybe not this season, but maybe in the off season, is that you're going to have to make moves to better this team. And who do you have that you can really move that has some sort of value to them? So I think, if anything, I can see Rhys being part of a way to fix this team. I like Rhys. I like the player he is. I don't like that he is, as you say, very inconsistent at times. But for me, I think it's his fate is going to be more based on the fact that they're going to need to make a decision. And that decision is to speed up the timeline and try to win sooner. And his number may be called to be part of a trade to bring some other pieces in here.
Yeah, and I do think he is probably the least of their worries. I think you take a week and a half stretch where he's not hitting particularly well, and you deal with it because you know that soon he'll turn it around. So I think he's the least of the worries. But yes, he will also likely be a casualty if they decide that they need to try to do a quick and dirty rebuild, because clearly the decade plus one they've been working on hasn't worked. And with Harper in his prime now and JT in his prime, there's gonna need to be talk about some form of a 1 year turnaround or whatever, something a la the Red Sox, where they won that championship, had a year or two that were bad, and now they're right back in it. So but the problem is there anybody in this front office that can lead something like that? And you have Dombrowski. Yes, that was just with the Red Sox, but I don't think he's been the catalyst. I don't think the moves he made were the catalyst to where that team is now. I think that's the new regime that's there in Boston. So I don't know. It's
yeah. I mean, I was not initially a huge fan of the Dombrowski hire, and I don't have any notes in front of me to reference here, but there have been some moves that he made in Boston that did really help the team. And there's some moves where he brought out some contracts and stuff that ended up being causing issues for them. But he did help that organization win, and I do think we're going to see a proactive Dombrowski in the offseason. It's just a matter of whether it's a proactive Dombrowski because he's making trades, or it's a proactive Dombrowski because he is convinced Middleton to open up the wallet and just bring people in with money instead of prospects. So I'm going to give Dombrowski this next offseason to see what he can do for this team. But there are some players like Rhys Hoskins who I fear for that may be on the chopping block.
Yeah, I think that's all valid. It's now that we're seeing how this team is performing as a whole, even though it's not completely healthy, and we are going to see. Although McCutchen has had quite a season, and he's putting up the power numbers, and he can still produce. But I think this probably will be the last time you see McCutchen in a Phillies uniform. This will probably be the last. Or no, I'm sorry, Didi's got another season here, but I don't remember. Gene Segura might be done into this season too. So yeah, you might be seeing a few new starters in the lineup next year, and yeah, we'll see if that includes Rhys or not over at first.
Yep. I'm sorry. I just wanted to add, to be a positive, because we've talked about in the past Rhys' struggles. Bohm has been really well this month. He's batting I believe it's like 371 this month.
Yeah.
So his average has climbed over 40 points in the 3 weeks that we've been in June. So he's a guy that I love to see that increase. I was pointing out to friends of mine when we were at the Yankees game the fact that Bohm had 2 hits in the game I went to. Both were one was opposite field, one was up the middle, which is a great sign for him. He's an all fields hitter, and him not pulling the ball was a great sign to me. We talked about the fact that Didi has another year left. The fact that maybe Dombrowski makes some moves in the offseason. Just the other day, Bryson Stott, the Phillies' young shortstop prospect, just hit his 9th home run in the minors this season. So he's batting 294 now in Double-A. So that is something to look out for. Also a big friend of Bryce Harper. So who knows? Maybe if it happens, I'm not saying it will happen, but maybe if they find a suitor for Didi, we could see Bryson Stott sooner rather than later. I do think if Didi stays another year, we'll see Bryson at least in 2 years.
Yeah, I with all that information and what's going on with this team, I do think he'll probably be up here sooner than later. And yeah, it would be it'd be nice to have one that comes up and really really performs well. And a la Alec Boehm, now that he's kind of getting back on a streak, just looking back on his June as you were talking about it here, he's got 7 multi-hit games, including 4 hits in the most recent game against the Nationals. He had a 3-hit game in the second game against San Francisco. So yeah, he really is figuring out how to inside out the ball, and no home runs this month, but I'm not too worried about that. I think that's something he's clearly built to. He'll have power, and that'll be something that comes around. I'd rather him work on the small ball now and get these hits
Absolutely.
in, and then and let the power
Absolutely.
come.
Yeah, I'd
Naturally.
rather him be the player that we thought we were getting, which was a guy who would hit for high average and hit the ball over place. I'd rather him be an RBI guy. And you're right, he has so much strength, and he'll develop more strength as he gets older. That a lot of those hits will go over the wall. So I have no worry about that. I'd rather him be the high average, high RBI. Can really rely on him in tough situations, which we have been able to. His average after the 7th inning has been great, especially with runners on. So his power numbers right now are not a worry to me. I just love seeing that average go up.
Yep, and just to go back kind of into our talk about Hoskins, the Bohm would certainly be capable of moving over to first if they move Reese for some other sort of position, and you move Bohm to first and do something else at third base. So it's all there's a couple of options that could play out, and I think a lot of it will have to do with how this the rest of the season goes. Just to close out that San Francisco series, the Phillies do drop the last game of that one. They fall 11-2. JT Realmuto goes 3 for 4 in that game with a double and a home run. He collects the only 2 RBIs for the team. Once again, Zach Eflin gets the start. He goes 5 innings, giving up 7 runs. Spencer Howard came in relief later on. He'd go in an inning and 2/3, giving up 2 earned runs. And everyone's favorite David Hale comes in for an inning. He gives up 2 earned runs as well. As a capper on this Giants series, we've talked about Gabe Kapler before, sort of in jest, but somewhat seriously as well. I am curious to see if you think, is his managerial style playing a role at all in their success, or is it more of they'd already had a team in place and a system in place there, and he was kind of just the icing on the cake? How are you viewing that success out there?
Very tough for me, especially with it being a team in the West Coast that we don't see as often. It would be much easier if it was like a closer team that was easier to watch. And I would say probably more of the fact that it is more of a team. They have more of their veteran leadership still there from past teams. I do like the system that they have in there. I think the system of the analytics system or the scouting system, whatever you want to call it, there I think is a little further along than it is here in Philadelphia. So I think it's more the situation he's in. But like I said, it's tough for me to really put my finger on what exactly it is, whether it's him or the system or the team itself, because it's just not a team that I read a lot about or see a lot because they are on the West Coast.
Yeah, those are all great points, and we are also only not even to the All-Star break yet, and there's still a whole half a season to go. Granted, we saw how they played last year, but I do think it was a case of he fit in better there than he did here for multiple reasons. The way the front office was set up, the way the team was built, very analytically, and just the atmosphere of the San Francisco team. It's a little more, I think it's a little more relaxed out there, and whereas all Philadelphia sports are much more, I guess, in your face and much more just tougher. It is tougher, and some people like to point out that you got to be tough to play here, and whatever. I sometimes I think Philly fans and just the people who watch Philly sports in general um get a little too crazy with it. But I as much as obviously I am a fan of Kapler. It was never going to work here. There was just too many reasons it wasn't going to work here, and I'm happy to see that he's doing well out there. And maybe in a year's time we'll be talking about how he, manager of the year or whatever. Or maybe there's another collapse that happens out in San Francisco in September. So
Yeah,
we'll
I mean, it's. I'm sorry. It's also should be said that their pitching has been really good.
yes.
I mean,
Yep.
if you look at the run differential, it's still at over 100. It's the highest run differential.
Wow.
Second highest run differential in baseball. Houston has the highest.
That's crazy. I did not know it was. That's crazy. That's an insane number. Yeah.
So I mean, the pitching has really held up. Now, with that, you can argue both ways. You can argue, well, pitching, without looking at the stats, like I don't have every stat in front of me. I know Gossman has been really good for them.
Yep.
But like I don't know exactly how well the bullpen is. The bullpen seemed to be doing okay job when I was watching them this weekend.
Yeah.
And you can say, well, bullpens can flux year in year out. I get that. So it's but their pitching staff is compared to ours is doing a hell of a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And the old adage of pitching wins championships, is an adage because it's usually true.
Yep.
So credit to the Giants and Gabe Kapler. We'll see in time what the the real linchpin over there was for them.
Well, the last two games that the Phillies played in this stretch since the last time we spoke to you guys, two games they had against the Nationals, and I said to Bob before we started recording here, this series alone we could have got an entire podcast out of just with what went on. So I believe it was Monday that MLB instituted the new rules where pitchers were going to be inspected for substances anywhere on their body, on the hat, on their wrist, on the glove, on the belt, any kind of. They're cracking down on the use of sticky substances to grip the ball and get those high spin rates on the breaking pitches. So MLB has instituted a new rule where between innings, the umpires will be checking, and I don't know the specifics as far as how often they're supposed to check or if there's certain innings they got to check, but they are checking these pitchers to see if they're doing anything illegal. And at its core, I like that they're cracking down on this because I think it's evident that something's going on and something needs to change. I don't like this approach to it. I'm not, saying I have a better suggestion, but clearly, well, let's get into the first game and see how things played out. So, game one against the Nationals, Phillies dropped this one 3-2. Bryce Harper and Rhys Hoskins each collect solo home runs. This game saw Zach Wheeler go up against Max Scherzer again. We just saw this matchup a couple weeks ago in South Philly as well. Zach Wheeler did not, actually neither pitcher pitched as well as they had that first time. This game, Zach Wheeler is only able to go 3 innings, gives up 3 earned runs. He threw 76 pitches in those 3 innings. I was at the game, so Bob, I may have missed. Was there any kind of injury concern or anything as far as why Wheeler came out, or was it just kind of just a high workload and not wanting to push him too far?
No, there was no, of my recollection, any injury concern with Wheeler. I think it was just he didn't have it sort of feeling with him. Which, I mean, out of one start, I'm not gonna panic. I'm sure that's going to be a question you're going to ask. I'm not worried about Wheeler right now. It was just one sort of odd start. If this becomes a trend, then I'll worry. But no, I think, and I'm hoping mainly that this is just a blip on the radar for Zach Wheeler, who's had a tremendous season. Yeah,
it's not a great look, but every pitcher, unless you're Jacob deGrom, every pitcher not named Jacob deGrom is going to have appearances like this where it just gets a little a little out of hand. And yeah, I'm not too worried about it. And he'll probably be just fine his next time out. So like I said, on the other side, Max Scherzer gets to start for the Nationals, and both guys a couple times get checked after. I think it was after the first and after the third. They both got checked on their way back to the dugout, and Wheeler, complied and let them, do what they need to do, and Scherzer complied too. But you could see right away he was a little unhappy with it. Might not be the best word. Yeah, the way he kind of just lazily threw his glove out there, and you can just body language wise he wasn't happy with it, and I understand not being happy with it. Like I said, I still don't think this at all is the way to approach this, but MLB's trying something here. So then we get into the fourth inning. Scherzer is facing off against Alec Boehm. He ends up striking him out. There was a pitch where it kind of got away from him, and he almost plunked Alec Boehm on the head. And as Alec Boehm's coming back to the dugout, from my perspective, when I was sitting at the game, I suddenly see the umpires coming together, and they're getting together, I think, over by the Phillies dugout or somewhere over there. And then all of a sudden I see Scherzer throwing his glove on the ground and his hat on the ground. And I'm like, what? I thought maybe he got caught with something. So it turns out Girardi had asked the umpires to check Scherzer for whatever substances, and this is something that the teams are allowed to do, and I think they were allowed to do it even before this. You were allowed to ask for pitchers to be checked if you were suspicious of something. And so the umpires, they go out there, and I guess that Girardi, because after the game, Girardi mentioned how he saw Scherzer putting his hands through his hair, which is something he managed against Scherzer many times in his career, both in the AL and the NL, and he claims it's something he's never seen Scherzer do before, putting the hands through the hair like that. So I guess the umpires took note of that and then went out and said the same thing to Scherzer, and you could see Scherzer mouthing something about it's just sweat, I'm rubbing my head, whatever. After the game, he talked about how, it was a pretty cool night, and so normally he would get the sweat from the back of his head and use that to try to group up the ball. But because it was a cool night, he wasn't getting that same sweat on the back of his neck. So then, he was trying to pull it from his head, and the poor umpire that had to run his hands through Max Scherzer's hair and feel and make sure there was no kind of gel in there or anything like that he was using. The whole situation was just so ludicrous, and I don't think anything after that inning happened. But then after the fifth, Scherzer would come out. He was walking out back to the dugout. It was going to be his last inning regardless, and he kind of stared down Girardi, and Girardi did not like it. He came up to the top step, and then there was a conversation with one of the Nationals bench coaches that used to coach with Joe in New York, and it just became a whole thing, and Girardi eventually gets ejected. So
did Scherzer, right? Scherzer was not ejected now. It was just Girardi. You're right.
Yeah, Scherzer was just coming out of the game anyway. I think he had thrown 100 and something pitches at that point, and he. I guess my question is, was it a Bush League move? I mean, the consensus that I saw on some of the online forums and some of the posts about this, that a lot of people were calling Girardi cheap, and Mike Rizzo, the GM of the Nationals, called him a con artist, which I thought was a little too far. But a lot of people saying it was just a crappy move for Girardi pull off. Do you see it that way? Did you see it as poor sportsmanship at all?
It is. If I was in Girardi's shoes, I would probably use similar tactics, but I think it's also up to MLB to later on hopefully fix this rule and not allow it to be used as a tactic against players. I know exactly what he was trying to do. He was trying to get the similar result. He was trying to get Scherzer thrown off his game, and anything to annoy him, because he knew he probably didn't know like at the beginning of the game, but he probably knew after the first time that he was checked that Scherzer doesn't like to be checked that much, and there's no rule against how many times you're allowed to check somebody. Someone I saw online suggested, well, maybe they should take away the challenges as a deterrent for checking. But I think Girardi saw the first time that they checked him, like, okay, what? Well, we can do it as many times as we want. Maybe we'll just do this and hopefully throw off Scherzer, especially because our ace wasn't having a great game. He wasn't on his command. But after the game, I know Scherzer was really upset. Zach Wheeler took it in stride. He's like, I don't care about being checked. That's fine. I check me as many times as you want. I don't know. I think it's in MLB's. I mean, I would do the same thing as Girardi, but I think it's MLB's decision to, or hopefully to fix this and not let it become a tactic that managers can use. I mean, I remember years ago when Brett Myers was a Philly, they were playing a game in Miami, and the Marlins made Brett Myers wear long sleeves because they said his tattoos were distracting. It was a hot game in Miami.
Yeah.
So people thought, okay, that's a tactic that they're going to use to make him sweat on the mound with long sleeves on.
Yeah.
In a 95 plus degree game. So I don't like rules like this being used to manipulate the game in this way. I agree with you wholeheartedly when you said in the beginning that you don't like the cheating. I don't like cheating either. I think this stuff needs to be cracked down on. But the way they're doing it right now, especially with the videos you're seeing at other games of pitchers' gloves being taken away and Sergio Romo basically almost taking his entire uniform off.
Yeah, and that Romo thing was a little over the top. I think it was a little disrespectful to that umpire. You know, the umpire. Now you can separately talk about the bad umpiring this year and what's going on, but in that moment, you know, that the umpire wasn't at fault for what was going on there. That's what his bosses are telling him to do, and I think that was a little too much from Romo to show up the umpire like that. But I just, maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, but I didn't see it. I don't know. I guess part of it was a tactic by Girardi to try to throw off Scherzer, but I do think there may have been a little bit of concern from him. But at the same time, Scherzer had already been checked twice, so you know, I don't know. I might be playing a little bit of a homer here, but I don't know. I felt like Girardi was getting a little too much flack for what went on there, and I don't know. But you're right. It's going to be something that's going to continue to go until these new, you know, whatever rules we're going to get put in, and it's going to continue to be something that is going to distract from the actual games. Yeah,
it was very weird. I remember. I don't believe it was in this game. I think it was in the next game. Yeah, I think it was in game 2 of the series. You know, David Hale, I believe, came off the mound and they're going to commercial break, and you see the umpire run down from first base and check his glove. It's just a weird thing to see. Like, I don't really like it. It's just like, I get it, and I'm sure you've seen the video of Trevor Bauer talking to people from, I believe it's with ESPN, with the rosin and the sweat and how it sticks to your hand. So there are legal ways to get advantages, and there are not legal ways to get advantages. I don't want to see players cheat, but this rule just ain't it.
Yep, and we'll see how it evolve. Hopefully it'll evolve throughout the year, and we'll get a more streamlined approach to how to solve this. But to close out that game 1 of that quick 2-game series, the Phillies did drop it, like I said, 3-2. They had a chance in the 9th. Alec Boehm, as we said, has been hot this month of June, and he leads the 9th off with a double. Ronald Torreyes would end up getting hit by a pitch, and newly called up Matt Vierling, I think is how you pronounce his name. He collected a hit as well. They'd load the bases with one away, and Odubel Herrera and Hoskins just couldn't come through there and score the tying run. So Philly dropped that first game 3-2. Game 2 is we quick texted about it yesterday. This may have been the worst regular season loss I've ever seen. So final score 13-12 in favor of the Nationals.
It was bad.
At three different points in the game, the Phillies had a 5-run lead, a 4-run lead, and a 1-run lead going into the 9th, and they just blew every opportunity. They scored 5 runs early in the game, and Velasquez just couldn't hold it down. He imploded in the 5th inning. I think it was the 5th or the 6th inning, Andrew McCutchen comes in for a pinch hit grand slam, and all of a sudden they're up 9-5, and still the bullpen could just not hold that lead. And despite Travis Jankowski collects 3 hits in this game, he had a 3-run home run himself and a double as well. Alec Boehm with 4 hits, and it just didn't matter because every guy that came out of the bullpen just could not hold things together. But the one guy I want to focus on is Hector Neris. He blows the one run lead that they had in the ninth inning. He's blown 3 out of his last 5 save opportunities. Bob, I think we've both defended Hector Neris in this podcast before, but is it possibly time for the Phillies to go somewhere else in the closer's role?
Yes, I think it is. I think it's time to go somewhere else. But another point I want to bring up, and it's sort of been an issue with me all season, is the way Girardi uses the bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
They brought in David Hale in this game, who has been used mostly in mop-up roles because, well, he's David Hale and he hasn't been very good. Why didn't they go to Brogdon or somebody else in that role? You had a day off 2 days prior. Brogdon only went like an inning and in the third, maybe the last game. And then you have a day off the next day. What was what was his rationale on that? And Suarez went in 2/3. Like maybe that's more okay. I get it. He went in 2/3, but he was still available. Like I don't get even Falter was doing well. Just the way he's used the bullpen and his rationale sometimes just doesn't really hit home with me.
Well, I do want to mention, because after the game he was asked about that. I believe he said Brogdon and Ranger Suarez were both unavailable for the game. And I'm not saying that to defend him. I'm saying that because why were they unavailable? Like you just said, they were off Monday. They're off today. I don't know. To me, it seems silly that neither guy would be available. Suarez, okay, makes a little more sense. He threw more, but there's no reason Brogdon couldn't have come in. And I believe that's been a criticism of Girardi in the past when he was with the Yankees. It's his management of the bullpen. He's known for not particularly putting guys in the best situations. Now, to go with that, it's not like he has a ton of great options to go to out there as it is, but there certainly are situations where, you're right. It feels like there were much better options to go to, and I mean, it bit them yesterday, and so I guess as we finish talking about this game here, who do you go to if Neris isn't your guy? To me, there's one clear option and one possible option, maybe two side options, but I think there's one clear guy right now that I'd go to. But I'm curious who your closer would be to replace Neris right now.
My first choice is it's probably a weird choice because he hasn't been doing great, but my first choice is Archie Bradley. It is. I know he hasn't done amazing this season. His ERA is over 4, but I think with some guys, and I think Archie fits this category, is once you're the guy at the end of the game, the mentality changes.
Absolutely.
I think you saw that with Brett Myers. When Brett Myers was the guy at the end of the game, the mentality of his changes. So I would give it to him and let him run with it. If he stumbles, my number 2 would be Connor Brogdon. How about you?
Oh, okay. My number 1 is Jose Alvarado, and I know that you could you could point to quite a few of his appearances where he comes in and he's very wild and gives up his walks. But I do think we've seen him go up against the Dodgers. We saw him go up against the Giants, and we saw him in this National Series. Put up some pretty good appearances. So, and I don't remember if he probably had a few closing opportunities with the Rays, but I just I think it's similar to what you were just saying about Archie Bradley, where once you put a guy into that closer's role, it just changes your whole mentality. And Alvarado has been on a streak recently where the walks have been down and the putting the ball in the zone has been up. And I mean, the guy throws 101 mile an hour sinker. So that's the kind of guy, at least to me, you want to see coming in at the end of games like that. You want that guy that's got that high velocity and just impact pitch, and I think he can do it. He hasn't allowed a run since the beginning of June. He's had 6 straight scoreless appearances. It's 7 innings total. He did have a 3-walk game, and that is a concern. But it's there's, to me, no one else in the bullpen is a sure thing. So I like putting in the guy that's got that just intensity like that. And then my other option, I actually was surprised you didn't mention him. I would not mind throwing Ranger Suarez in this situation because he has had the best season in that bullpen. And who knows?
It's funny you brought him up because we talked about him a while ago, and I believe you mentioned the fact that you like the way he's pitching so well. I figured he would be a guy that you would like, the fact that you can use him in all spots.
But I just think a guy's value in the bullpen, it's if you can be the closer. And then, but if there's already a guy that's got that closer's role locked up, then you use him as a fill him in kind of guy. But because the Phillies are in the situation they're in right now, where at least it sounds like we agree that it's clear that they need a new closer. If it's not going to go to Alvarado, I would like to see Suarez get a shot. I mean, he has already been put into. He's been put into situations where he's got to go 3 innings. He's been put into situations where he's getting the last out of the inning. He's going up against 2 runners on and 1 out, and he's performed in all of them. And I just think that if you're not going to go with a guy like Archie Bradley who has experience, if you're not going to go with a guy like Alvarado who's got that huge arm, Suarez I think has shown at least this season that he is deserving of an opportunity. And you do take away an arm that could be a starter, and it's just, I mean, the cycle continues as far as what you're going to do with the rotation and different parts of the pitching of this team. But yeah, I guess we'll see tomorrow, because I don't know if anybody's going to ask Girardi, and I don't know if Girardi's going to have an answer, and who knows, Girardi may even decide that Neris stays in as the closer. He said yesterday he was going to give it a day and reevaluate. So who knows when we'll find out. Go ahead.
How about, I'm going to throw out another name who we haven't heard from recently because he's been on the IL, but Kinsler.
No, I'm not a fan. I haven't seen anything this season. I do not fault this team whatsoever for signing him. He's had a track record of performing very well and has had a pretty lengthy career of consistent gameplay, and it's just not there this year. And I don't know if that's just an age thing. I don't know if his ability is kind of slipping a little bit, but there's been nothing, at least in all the guys we've mentioned so far, Archie Bradley, Jose Alvarado, Connor Brogdon, Ranger Suarez, there's been glimpses of, okay, this guy is showing that he can really be a dominant pitcher. I can't recall a game where Kinsler looked particularly dominant. Of course, he's had his scoreless outings, but I mean, right now he's sitting at an ERA of over 8, and he's led up his fair share of home runs, and
he's very boomer bust. I will give you that. I'm looking at his game log. He has stretches of clean innings, and then every maybe 4th or 5th game he'll give up a 3-run, and then a 3 runs, and then 4 runs. So I'll give you that he's been very boomer bust for this team this year.
Yeah, when he does come back, he'll be sort of what Archie Bradley's been doing recently, where you just kind of stick him in different roles and let him get himself built back up, and then I think eventually Bradley, if he doesn't become the closer, he'll become a 7th, 8th inning guy, and Kinsler hopefully could do the same. But we'll see how it all plays out. The schedule's not getting much easier for the Phillies as we head into these next couple weeks. As I said, tomorrow they've got the doubleheader. I believe one of the games will be started by Aaron Nola and the other one by Matt Moore. And they have 2 more games over the weekend against the Mets. I believe DeGrom is starting that Saturday game against Zach Wheeler. So runs may be likely a 1-0 game in that one, because DeGrom has shown no signs of slowing up, and despite the hiccup game there for Zach Wheeler. It's I'm still confident that he can perform well. Although now, as I'm looking at the schedule, Wheeler's actually going to go Sunday. So Saturday we'll see DeGrom against Eflin, and I don't know. I mean, we talked about Eflin earlier, and he hasn't really pitched to what anybody was hoping for. So
yep. And then Sunday we see an old friend.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Jared Eichhoff getting the start for the Mets and going. He will be going up against Zach Wheeler. So. And the Mets are the first place team right now. They're not exactly running away with it. They do have a 4-game cushion, but this is the first place team in the division. And then on Monday, the Phillies head out to make up that game against Cincinnati, and then they come home to take on Miami and San Diego. So not no let up right now. There's a lot of heavy hitters coming in, and this. We could be talking about a last place team, in all honesty, at the end of this, and obviously nobody wants that. But if things don't improve, it could get much uglier. So normally I ask for predictions for the upcoming games, Bob, but I won't put that pressure on you. But I am curious is there any light? Do you see any reason to think that this road trip and next few games won't be more of the same?
I mean, as of right now, I think it's going to be more of the same. Do they have the ability to turn it around? Absolutely, I think they have the ability to turn it around. I'm not just saying that because I'm a fan. I'm saying that because I've seen individual players have their moments this season. We've seen Wheeler have a great stretch. We've seen the Vince Vasquez great stretch. We've seen Noah be good, sporadically here and there. They just haven't been consistent, even in the offensive side of things. So this team has been very frustrating. We talked about how frustrating they've been to watch. It's because they have the ability to put it all together and to really click, but they don't seem to do so. So, no, I don't feel great about this next stretch. But who knows? Maybe they'll prove me wrong. And as far as DeGrom goes, I think we'll probably talk about closer to the All-Star game, maybe our midseason predictions for end of year awards. But DeGrom, if I'm a voter, he's getting my vote right now for Cy Young and MVP. Because he has just had an unbelievable season, and it's just, even though he's a Met, I've seen a lot of his starts, and it's been very fun to watch him pitch.
Yeah, I am normally not a fan of pitchers winning both the Cy Young and the MVP, just because I like to see the offensive guys get recognition. But there's a very solid chance that in both leagues we see a pitcher win both awards with Shohei Ohtani in LA. I mean, it's.
I was going to say the same thing. It's a strong possibility. I think both guys are deserving of both awards, at least at this stage. And just the last week, talking about Shohei, the last week Shohei has had of a great start, and I think he's hit like 4 home runs in the past week. It's just been unbelievable to watch. I was texting my other friends the other day. I said, "Man, I wish this guy was on a better team," because I think the word on him would be more widespread.
Oh yeah,
but it's been fun, and as of right now, I agree. I would vote for both of them to win both awards if my vote was on due today.
Yeah, completely agree. Despite, like I said, I normally am not a fan of that, but there's no denying either one of them. So, well, at least we'll be able to tell future children or whoever else that we got to see DeGrom, pitch in person or on TV or whatever, because he's just that special of a guy right now. So, well, thank you for everybody for listening. Sorry that DeGrom is not on the Phillies, but who knows? Maybe this weekend the Phillies somehow pull off a sweep and we're just ecstatic going into the next week, or maybe they get swept and things are looking not so great for the team. But we'll be back next week, and like Bob said, we'll start to get an all-star talk and maybe talk about our halfway votes
Yeah.
for all the awards.
And oh my god, I just realized that the next day off for the Phillies is the day before the All-Star game.
Yeah. With
Jesus
which
Christ.
by the way, they're off today. The Mets are off today, but they decided to make tomorrow a doubleheader, which I don't understand that decision. But it is what it is. I guess with the 7 innings now, they figure it's better to have 2 7-inning games rather than split the 2 games up over 2 days. But whatever. That's not.
Oh god, that's a brutal stretch.
Yeah, there's already enough to worry about with this team. I'm not. I guess complaining about the schedule is just too much. But like I said, thank you everyone for listening. We will return next time and hopefully with some more positive things to talk about. So enjoy the weekend and then see you next time.